Today, my friends, is the entire story about Ben Reilly, Spider-Man's clone, friend, and villain. And we'll finally answer the question you've probably been wondering. Who the hell is this blue hoodie-wearing web-slinger, and why does he look like he's fresh out of Nirvana? This is the complete story, history, and origin of Scarlet Spider. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. Clones, they're not really for me, right? You're not the multiverse kind of person, and I get it, I do. But bear with me, it's more than just clone confusion stuff. Okay, it's mainly clone confusion stuff. Now, if you don't know anything about Spider-Man and the infamous Clone Saga, it started off as an interesting and pretty cool idea, until it was a clusterfuck. But everybody can agree the best two things to come from it were Scarlet Spider-Man and Ben Reilly and Kane, but that's a story for another time. Now, you see, Ben didn't get his name for years. His first appearance was in Spider-Man 149 in 1975, and his main existence back then was to be like a nameless clone made by the Jackal, who looks like my son's first attempt at like drawing a monster. He's 2. Now, he was made in an effort to torment Spider-Man for the death of Gwen Stacy. That's right, Gwen did die, and this was kind of the first time a huge hero's girl ever did so. Now, fast forward, and the clone does end up dying, and Spider-Man buries him. Which you and I here are going to start a little like tab going on for Peter Parker Spider-Man for things that he should get therapy for throughout this story, but doesn't. But of course, he doesn't die, right? Ben Reilly, he doesn't die. The clone doesn't die because 1, Marvel, but 2, he had an injection put into him by the Jackal right before he died, whatever that means. He would then go on to spend the next 5 years kind of in exile, and he took up the name Ben Reilly, which is a combo of Aunt May's middle name and Uncle Ben's first name. He even went through the effort of getting illegal documents so that he could take on his new identity and work as a janitor. Life comes at you fast. Now, the only problem with this is blending in wouldn't really work because, he's kind of Spider-Man, so every few seconds his Spidey senses would be going off, and he would constantly find himself helping out in some sense of the word. Now, he would eventually return to New York when he found out that Aunt May's health was failing, and he eventually met face-to-face yet again with Peter Parker, which didn't go well, as you can imagine. Running in face-to-face with yourself is reason number 2 for the therapy, although at this point he's probably getting used to it. Now, they didn't see eye to eye at first, but they did quickly become friends, and he did take on the role at that point of Scarlet Spider to work alongside Spider-Man and be his ally. Now, this is where things get a little confusing. It was revealed by Seward Trainer that Peter was the clone, and Ben, all along, was the real Peter Parker. And of course, well, you guessed it, you should have gotten therapy. Now, this drove Peter pretty much insane and left Ben stunned, but they did agree to keep their names. Now, we fast-forwarded our story a little bit as Peter decides to hang up the suit when he found out that Mary Jane is pregnant, leaving Scarlet Spider as the main sole Spider-Man of the city. However, as we fast forward a little bit more, Peter got put on trial for murder, and Ben actually took his spot in prison, which led Peter to then act like Scarlet Spider until he didn't have to anymore because Ben was later proved innocent, and by Ben, I mean the Spider. I told you this is confusing. It was at this point that Ben decided he's gonna go do his own damn thing, and he then joined the New Warriors, although they didn't really like him. The team members didn't accept him because he refused to reveal his identity, which was essentially Peter Parker. So with now Peter, which was actually Ben, out of prison, Peter, who was acting like Ben, left because Mary Jane was pregnant. Keep all this in mind. Stay with me. I know. I said clusterfuck. Ben decided, you know what? I'm going to be my own Spider-Man. I don't want to be like Peter, so I'm going to dye my hair blonde, and I'm going to work as a barista. That'll show him. He even started dating the local university student Jessica Carradine, who he very quickly ended things with when it was revealed that she was the daughter of a burglar who ended up killing Uncle Ben. Now, with Peter gone and him being the official Spider-Man, things were different because, for one, he was not Peter, and so he ran into some problems. Number 1, he had no idea about Peter's current friendships. For example, you guys learned about Silver Sable on this channel a couple weeks back. Well, you knew that she was hanging out with Sandman, who was newly reformed, but Ben had no idea and just started going crazy on him out of nowhere, so much so that Human Torch had to intervene, and clearly from there, everybody knew something was up. During this time, he also did some serious adventures like battling Mysterio and running into the X-Men. In fact, he helped them defeat Mr. Sinister from obtaining a sample of Carnage, leading up to the point that Ben actually bonded with Carnage to stop all that from going crazy. Now, it was shortly after this that Peter and Mary Jane decided they missed New York and they wanted to come back. And yeah, that was Peter's decision, but kind of also mainly the writers. They realized that, the Peter Parker's story shouldn't just end marrying and being done with Mary Jane. Now, with Peter return, Ben and him talked about both fulfilling the role of Spider-Man until they were captured by the Green Goblin, who revealed that it was him all along working behind the scenes to make Peter's life miserable, going as far as altering the data that he originally saw that showed that he was the clone, but in fact, he never was. Which, a couple things here. First of all, that just means Marvel didn't really like it, so they reversed it. But also, can you imagine? This guy just got through it, like, left New York, got through the fact that he was a clone, and then it was like, never mind. Now, the Green Goblin then attacks both of them, in fact, poisons Mary Jane, forcing her to lose her freaking unborn child. And luckily, Peter's about to bite the dust, but Ben manages to save him, but it cost him his life, which is tragic. Oh no, Ben's dead, but oh wait, checks notes, he dies 20 plus more times. All right, things take a wild turn. Are you confused yet? Good, same as the rest of us. Now, it was revealed years after this, fast forward, the Jackal never died, and in fact collected the remains after Ben's death. He would then take these remains and use them to clone him several times, splitting his memories with each and every attempt and slowly driving him insane. And it took not 1, not 10, but 27 deaths, and Ben finally broke free and, well, defeated Miles. Now, this is when we enter his villain saga. He actually decides to take over the title of the Jackal, sporting an Anubis mask and just going crazy by developing a plan to release a virus across the world in an attempt to replace everybody's body with clones. But of course, spoiler, Spider-Man stops him. And look, I don't know how it feels to die 25 times. I don't, but what I do know is whenever I'm just looking for a little dopamine, you know where I'm going. You where probably a lot of people go. Las freaking Vegas. Now, it was here that he picked up the role of Scarlet Spider once again, but he was confronted by Kane Parker, who, again, story for another time, but he was the original failed clone, just to confuse you more, and he had a brief stint as the Scarlet Spider in Texas. Now, Kane confronts Ben. He's really pissed off about what he did when he was the temporary Jackal, but Kane was eventually killed by Death herself. You see, Death, yes, Death, took a liking to Ben after him, well, dying a million times. She's got a thing for that. But as the story goes on, she eventually revives both Kane and Ben, and everything was all good from there. However, wait for it, he was killed again in some not important events. And then again, actually, after that. And this time, it was like soul-splitting and completely changing who he is. Now, I'm not even halfway joking when I say we fast-forward even more through like 4 more deaths to this guy, and he was finally resurrected yet again by Doc Ock. And finally, with his mind and soul healed, he returned to Las Vegas as Scarlet Spider once again. Which is kind of like the problem with a lot of this story. It's like, you know, they do something and then they take it back. You know, Peter's the clone. No, he's not. Go to Las Vegas, dies a couple times. It's just, it's a lot. Now, eventually, our boy Ben heads back to New York for, you know, a fresh start on, you know, whatever clones do after they die. And picks up yet another part-time gig as a night shift security guard at, you know, the museum. Which I'm just loving this guy's resume. Janitor, teacher, what was he, barista for a little bit, now security guard. I love it. However, shortly in the future, enter Iron Man, who instead of just calling the Avengers like a normal person, he recruits Ben and a bunch of other misfit heroes to take on a resurrected villainous android, and they even get a team name. Wait for it. Space Friends. Because nothing says badass like friendship bracelets and team lunches. So off they go to fight the android in space, and, you know, don't worry, the Space Friends were victorious and saved the day to return to Earth. And back on Earth, Ben gets an offer that he can't refuse. Which, I'm going to be honest, if you guys are still with me at this point, congratulations. I just want to say, I appreciate you. I appreciate you staying through this crazy story, because it's a lot. All right? It's a lot for me, and I'm sure it's a lot for you just listening to it. And one of the more confusing ones out there. Now, Ben gets offered by the Beyond Corporation. They want him to be Spider-Man yet again, and they even threw in some sweet perks, like a new suit, new gadgets, and a handler named Marcus. Oh, and also his girlfriend got out of prison, so the romance is back on the table. Now, Ben's living the Spider-Man dream, but there is a catch. He forgot to ask Peter Parker how he felt about it, and cue the brotherly brawl. Now, long story short, Peter actually ends up in the hospital with some radiation poisoning, and if we fast forward from that a bit, we get the ultimate clash of the Spideys, and Peter's recovered and ready to throw down, but Ben's got some issues like, you know, missing memories and a moral compass, and, well, everything's a little bit off. They break into the Beyond Staten Island facility because, of course, there's a Staten Island facility, and things go full freaking chaos mode from here. And after a huge duel, the fight ends with Ben getting submerged in this weird goo and, mutating. And from this point on, even though the story's about Scarlet Spider-Man, he got a new name. Chasm. And from this, a lot of stories came from it. He teamed up with Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen, and together they cooked up a plan to get Ben's memories back, but it wasn't all smooth sailing because of course it wasn't, which ultimately leads to Ben getting more and more unhinged, and before you know it, he's trying to take Peter's soul. By the end of this whole story, Ben's rocking a demon transformation, takes over Limbo, and declares himself King Chasm, which kind of leads me to the whole point about Spider-Man getting therapy. If Ben would have just had a couple people talk to him, just tell him what's going on, it could have saved a lot of this. Now, eventually, the Goblin Queen does get her head straight and traps Ben in this kind of prison where Peter can visit him and, have this super awkward kind of family reunion, but not family reunion because it's him and a clone. And that's kind of where we're going to conclude the story of Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider. There's so much there, so much chaos, so much to kind of dive into. But, in short of making this like a Lord of the Rings documentary, I wanted to make sure we got all the spark notes in there for you. But at the end of the day, really beloved character. You've got Kane as well with his whole story. He has a Scarlet Spider mantle as well. Super interesting character, but a complex saga. And hopefully you guys followed along with all the chaos. If you did and you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe as we're growing this channel. About to dive into way more popular characters, and it means a lot and shows me that you guys support. But anyway, you guys have a good one. Have a great one. Till the next video, have a good one. I still need a way to end these videos.